top and the left-hand side of the map and are not concerned with where the source is. So from a trade perspective, from a customs perspective, this is at a glance wake-up call in terms of how we are literally being left out of our own story. And it is very clear that unless we start to enter the story by the decisions that we take, we are always going to be left out of the world. Next slide, please. So let's look at the FNP through the lens of the AFCFTA. Connecting the free movement of goods and services and the free movement of persons is essential purely because we need to harness the benefits of inter-African trade. We cannot have inter-African trade without the people because, to be very blunt and to be quite direct, how would goods have status of freedom across borders, but the people either delivering the goods, the people creating the goods, the people that have to create services around the goods aren't able to move and will be hindered. And in that process, therein lies our problem. So we are faced with a non-alignment challenge at the moment, and that is and I know you know all of the figures, I'm not going to give it to you, and it's there anyway, in terms of the number of member states that need to ratify or deposit their instruments for ratification of the FNP in order for us to reach threshold and start being able to roll this out. The AFCFTA agreement is a critical precursor. As I said, it was always one half of a pear, one side of a coin, whichever or aspect you want to refer to it as. It was always supposed to be one half of two. It was never, or one half of one. It was never supposed to be one half of two. So therein lies how we now need to look at it. One of the key things that is putting us into a further misalignment, if I can put it that way, is the fact that the heads of state at the heads of state assembly in February obviously adopted all the AFCFTA protocols that were presented, which is the investment protocol, the intellectual property protocol, digital e-commerce, etc., women and youth in trade, and so on. So all of the protocols were adopted. That puts us out of sync further because the AFCFTA is now going to be able to reach operationalization quicker than we thought it would. And now we sit with people here and goods and services and capital and money literally on the other side of fence. And so our misalignment, the gap has become even wider. And therein lies our problem. Next slide, please. One of the key things that we need to look at, or how we engage. So since I saw you last, those of you that I did see last, since I saw you last, no, not that side, sorry, the previous side. Yes, that one, thank you. Since I saw you last, we've had other engagements, specifically from a Microsoft perspective, and then, I've had my own. But we've had a discussion, a very deep discussion, and I'm going to come to this now in detail, but a very deep discussion about the word free, which is misleading. It completely removes the thought or perspective that nothing within the free movement protocol is actually free. Nothing in it is free. Everything, or if anything, it is highly facilitated and extremely regulated if everyone complies. So nothing in it is free. However, we've got this word that puts member states off. I'm going to tell you a story just now, or not a story, but recount the events of a session that we held with member states and senior government officials on the FNP and how we are now calling for the name, the F to stand for facilitating movement and not free, purely because of the perception that it creates. And just the fact that people don't read documents and they look at a title of something and they go with that title, and that's where unfortunately it ends. So we want to be able to ensure that there's easier movement of persons on the continent, especially now, and I'm speaking now specifically from a labor market perspective, so that we need to be able to look at and address certain things like skills gaps. So from a labor market perspective, one of the biggest issues in our country, and depending on which country you come from, there would be a skills gap in various aspects, whether that is in highly professionalized and technical requirements, or less professional but still highly required in terms of technical. So, you know, one of the key things that we look at, we always think about are things like doctors, engineers. Those are the first things that come to mind when it comes to skills gaps. However, there are also skills gaps like plumbers and electricians that don't necessarily have highly technical qualifications, but are in demand in terms of skills gaps. So from a labor perspective, this is placing huge issues on certain countries from their economic development and growth, especially when you look at it from a thing like infrastructure development, where you need, and I'm just using the example again, of people like electricians and plumbers who are critical to infrastructure development. The economic development of African countries and achieving structural change and facilitating the mobility of categories such as business persons, entrepreneurs, and investors specifically. You will all now by now know a couple of weeks ago where the richest man in Africa, Dan Rose, sat on stage at the forum and said, World Economic Forum, and said that he has to get every, you know, at any given time, he has to have 35 visas. Now, the process, and you are fortunate in that you've got diplomatic passports and, you know, things moving, you can move freely. Imagine, I'm heading to the US tomorrow to speak at the United Nations, and even my diplomatic passport doesn't allow me anywhere to get a visa. However, I came back from Addis a week ago, so I needed my passport to go to Addis, to AU, and go back. So I had to go and apply for a visa at the consulate, at the US consulate, say to them, okay, but I can't give you my passport, sorry to you. I'm going to have to give you my passport at any time. And then your 3 to 6 weeks time period, I beg of you to please ignore that and give it back to me within 5 working days. And the questions I got asked, questions I got asked.
Take your time, take your time.
The US consulate has no. It's a scientist from all this weather. The questions I got asked, why, where, how. Now when you're the richest man in Africa, and you've got to be in 35 different countries over the next couple of weeks, how does that look? What does that look like from an investment perspective? This man wants to create investment into certain countries. He wants to put money into countries. He wants to build buildings and contribute to infrastructure growth. And we're giving him issues about visas. So the thing that we need to then look at is obviously the challenges that we face. Please next slide. So when we look at the challenges and disparities in understanding, amongst member states, there is a significant gap in understanding. And I say this to you with the greatest respect to them, but even they have to admit. We sat in a session, there were, so all five major recs were represented, actually all eight were represented. However, there were 17 countries in total. Out of the 17 countries, and I'm giving you, I facilitated the session. So this is not second-hand knowledge, it's first-hand knowledge. Out of the 17 countries represented. 3 newly elected. And these are member states, government officials, who were the government officials, not ministers and deputy ministers who are figureheads. These were government officials that were DGs or deputy directors of either Home Affairs, Border Control, specifically. So we're not talking somebody random figurehead or a political appointee. We are talking about people that are in charge of the steering thing. And even they have to admit that some of them said, I glanced through it. We came here to find out more. And so the story goes in terms of disparities and understanding. That word free, my dear people, is an extremely problematic word. Because they literally do not even entertain it. And even if they want to look at it as technocrats, if they take it to a minister, if they take it to a head of state,
So what is the use of putting in this whole massive thing called the AFCFTA if we're going to prefer to buy from Europe or America, and if we want to buy from our neighbors, our past beyond our borders? That is what is our biggest issue, that we need to be able to move from a xenophobic mindset to an actual mindset of unity, not just for the purposes of kumbaya, let's, be all lovely and welcoming to each other, but for the purposes of economic development, because somewhere along the line, ladies and gentlemen, it has to come down to the money. You are the Committee on Trade, Customs and Immigration. So your very purpose is to look at how do we ensure that the money starts to flow across the continent? How do we start to
clause of the convention of the AFMP, protocol. The issue is, I would address the elephant in the room. It's a very political subject. And whenever we talk about free movement of people, in our people's mind, the perception is that we're just going to open our borders and allow people to just come in without any control, without any um, there's a word you used earlier, without any like I say, in any form of regulation. That is it. Thank you very much. And already as it is, especially, it's a very political issue. So whenever we talk about free movement of people, there is that perception that people are just going to come in, take our job, like you say, we're going to take our women, take everything, take our land, and all these sort, especially women, and all these sort of things. And it's not a very popular subject. And even myself, I'm a culprit of that. I was formerly in the opposition. And whenever the issue of movement comes, it's a topic in parliament, it's always very heavily debated upon. And there's a lot of resistance from the opposition. And it's a very political subject because the moment you address it, the people might suddenly turn against you. And it's a very, very controversial topic. The challenge is, how do we change the perception of our people? If, let's say now, our country will decide to bring the protocol in front of a parliament, and the opposition will use it as an opportunity to turn the people against us. You see, now, if we want to open our borders and allow people to come in, and they themselves, when they were in the opposition, they were against, not only from Africa, from Asia, from Europe. You know, it's the general perception that people doesn't like it when people come in their country for work or for whatever, to start business. It's not a very popular subject. The challenge is, how do we change the perception of people? So there is that unwillingness for government to approve the protocol because of the political implication. It might cost them a lot in terms of politically. So that's the biggest challenge that we're facing, not only Seychelles, I believe most of the other countries of Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Absolutely, 100%. And, you know, when we started this journey, shall we call it,
in 2022 with EcoSoc and GIZ, it was a nightmare, if I can put it that way, to even get any member state at any level of government to be able to even listen to it. I think what has been achieved over the last 3 years from 2022, including this year, is that there is a far deeper sensitization around the need for it, and that it's, you know, it's that box in the corner that you don't want to pack, or it's the thing that you don't want to get to, but now it's becoming the biggest thing purely because it's sticking out like a sore thumb, and purely because it is going to prevent the AFCFTA's operationalization. So the whole thing around, you know, giving you context around the EU is not to compare because we are not the EU. However, it's a question needs to be asked. Why do they not divide us? They've gone 17 times. So they, for lack of a better description, they're a case study for us to be able to look at, no matter the issues. And we all know the EU, they don't love each other. If anything, I've seen more hate across those borders than anywhere else in the world. The Italians and the Germans and the French, they have issues. But yet, when it comes to money, they have found a way to be able to overcome that. And therefore, all I'm saying is that we have to be able to look at, and those problems are never going to go away. Those problems are always going to be there. Our challenges are always going to be there in terms of perception, in terms of context. But when it comes to certain things, we are going to have to push this as hard as we can over the line. Even if we just make it by the skin of our teeth, we're going to have to push it over the line, or we sacrifice the economic growth of our continent. And therefore, it lands on your shoulders. I'm sorry to say, it lands on your shoulders in terms of how do we then start to overcome some of the challenges from a from a domestic perspective? Because they are there, and no one's denying that they are there, but they're also not going to go away. So we have to find a way around it. We have found a way around other things. This is just one of those things that are not nice, but we're gonna have to find a way around it.
Okay. Yes. Yes, I'm from Mauritius. Mauritius had not ratified the AFCFTA, but is signatory of AFCFTA. But we only 2 countries in Africa out of the 55 need a visa to come to Mauritius. All the other countries do not need a visa to come to Mauritius. Yes, and we are progressing quite well because we are updating, like you just said, our ADBAT system. We have the latest technology in the national identity card. Yes, we're doing that. And as you know, Mauritius is very small. We need to cooperate regionally and to other countries. And Mauritius depends a lot on export of sugarcane. And we have an agreement with the USA, the AGWA agreement. I don't know whether you know it. But the fact that Mauritius is changing, that is allowing us to more and more free our border, because Mauritius has a declining fertility rate. We getting into the middle income, as a middle income country. We have a very aging population and we have low employment rate. So we have a tendency, and especially this financial year, we are going to vote the finance bill very soon. And one of the amendment we're bringing is to allow people to come more and more. For example, any person, any aging person who wants someone to come as carer, the person is free to come from any country, Madagascar, South Africa, Kenya. They can come to Mauritius and stay for as long as they want. This means that we're progressing with free movement. And I've heard you speaking, talking about we have lots of graduate doctors here in South Africa, but in Mauritius, we need a lot of experienced doctor, and they have a tendency to turn to India instead, because in India there are lots of not newly graduated but very experienced doctor, and even our X-ray report, they are done online in India. You do your CT, for example, a scan in Mauritius, they send the scan to India, and then they do the report there, because we have lots of experienced radiologists in India, and that is scarce job, like obstetrician and radiologists are very scarce in the world, I think. That's why we're doing that. Um, I think we're doing quite well. I put a lot of question on the FCFTA in Parliament, in National Parliament, and yes, I think we are very good with free movement. Anyone who wants to come to Mauritius for a period of 3 months from any area from Africa can come, except I think South Sudan need to have a visa, and huh? No, not Nigeria. Nigeria can come at any time, and I think it's there's a country where there is a coup. Hmm? No, no, it's Central Africa somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but in Central Africa, there's a country in Central Africa and South Sudan. They need a visa. They will not be denied of access to Mauritius, but they will need to apply for a visa to come to Mauritius. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Presiding, colleagues, let me extend my thanks and appreciation to this committee, and also to the madam that presented this informative documentation. But basically, let me first of all drive all through the issue of public policy. There are three elements that constitute policy. You got risk, uncertainty, and certainty. Your ability as a leader to manage the three elements makes you a good leader. I'm saying this to say that we have decided as African, as leaders, as citizens, that we have natural resources in abundance, yet we are behaving like an ant, sitting down or a cola tree with naked neck, no clothes, but people go and harvest a cocoa and make money while you are sitting naked. And I think it's about time that we should ensure as African that we stay on our grind. I saw a little contradiction in our expert statement that she said that in order for the AFTA to be implemented or to be in full swing, there are obstacles for visa, bullet, and etc. Then later she came by to say that we can penetrate, no matter how the situation, there will be criticism along the way, but we are the 10th tall. And we are very much optimistic and will be persistent as African at this time to vigorously implement this identical ACTA on grounds that no part of the Western world that Africans are exporting or importing iron ore. Iron ores are being taken from Africa, carried to the Western world, bring it back to us at the exorbitant cost. Their fear now is because We Africans have resolved that in the first place, we should sell among ourselves our resources. If any Westerner is interested to buy, we are not banning you to say because you say we are selling among ourselves, therefore no Westerner should come. No. We are trying to position ourselves as a continent to complement each other nationwide, continental wide. There are some sophistication in South Africa that is not in Liberia. Once this documentation, aware, CAF, and enforcement, eventually, there will be possibility that South African will go and live in Liberia and professionalize or institutionalize in Liberia, where Liberians will be entrenched in something that they are not learned before from the South African. So the issue of people coming in to say at this time it will be difficult, I say there is no difficulty. We got to be courageous. So Africa, Nelson Mandela did not hold arm. Robert Sobukwe did not hold arm. Oliver Tambo did not hold arm. Gobert Mbeki, these personalities stood on ground because they wanted free movement. And today, the figure that white men used to ride and the deprived black men, they are all riding the same vehicle. The areas, the education that white men had, those in black men country. Today, they all have the privileges. It's about time. We should not be deterred. We should be objective. We should be focused. My only concern here is we, the parliamentarian, the same way in our respective country, that the parliamentarian sees a budget and they ensure that budgetary appropriation is fall within the parliament before the implementation by the executive. AU parliamentarian need to start putting mechanisms in place. We're not supposed to be complaining about budget. We're supposed to be putting the president, the executives, feet on the fire, giving them money that we need to do this, you need to do XYZ. And they should come out with a proposition. We domesticate it as a law in our respective country, and then there will be budgetary appropriation where there are conflicts or issue of trade barrier. The parliamentarian, the Committee on Commerce should be able to immediately go in, meet with the president of that country, meet with the parliament heads, and then go there and ensure that these things are being, is resolved. When we start exercising our power as legislator, I believe that Africa will be liberated. We need to stand tall. Thank you very much.
Yes, my brother.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam. This is an insightful presentation. As members of parliament, we should take this home, talk to our line ministers, ministers of labor, ministers of foreign affairs, in making sure we achieve the free movement policy. For Sierra Leone, of course, there's a policy now that you don't take visa. The struggle, the bureaucracy to get visa to Sierra Leone has been lifted. We now have visa on arrival for African nations, all African nations. You don't need visa to get to Sierra Leone. We now have visas on arrival, so as to enable and enhance Africans to go to Sierra Leone. I understand exactly when we talk about skills gap. After the war, when we started, we had a lot of companies that came for mining. And we noticed they were bringing in carpenters, they were bringing in plumbers, they were bringing in drivers. And that had a lot of confrontation from Sierra Leoneans. They go to the parliament and say, oh, we have drivers, we have electricians, we have plumbers. Why are we allowing these companies to bring these people? When we met with these companies, they explained to us that the drivers we have cannot drive some of the machines they have. So they have to import these people. They told us clearly that they cannot do the plumbing. We don't have the skills. So we had to encourage them. Some of them, we took them to these companies and they were not able to do the job. So it is very important that we have free movement of persons because that will help us. We'll have to exchange ideas in terms of skills. People come from other countries to our countries and train our people. But what have happened of late, I have noticed that the fact that we are encouraging people to travel, um, working permits, we have increased. African countries have increased working permits for other people coming from other African countries. For Sierra Leone, our working permit price was extremely very low. We are asking for less than $100 for people coming from other countries. But few years ago, we did we did a studies on other countries. We noticed that working permit for foreigners working in Ghana and other countries, they're asking for more than $1,000 for persons coming. And the Minister of Labor also came to our parliament requesting that we need to increase. We told him, yes, we need to increase, but that will also discourage people from coming to our country and coming to share their skills. Because you cannot increase working permit for $1,500 for somebody who's coming to do expatriate job. We don't have those set of skills in our country. So for xenophobia, of course, we know, like you said, if you are not in speaking terms, if you believe this person is coming to take from you, you'll definitely not do trade with him. Even internally, we have those struggles. These are tribal issues between ourselves, the Mendis, the Timinis. We have people who don't even go to those areas. So even when they have their trade, they prefer bringing them to the city instead of doing business within communities that are close to them because they are not in speaking terms because of tribe. So it is not unique to South Africa, like you said. We have listened to the presentation. We'll talk to the line ministry. Border disputes. In Sierra Leone, we have border dispute between ourselves and Guinea, the Yenga issue. During the war, we noticed the Guinea came very close to us so that to protect the Guineans. After the war, they refused going back. So there's a lot of dispute between us and the honorable, there's a dispute between us, Sierra Leone and Guinea for a small community, and it used to belong to Sierra Leone. The Guineans are not in. They are in charge. They are in charge. They have a military might there. We are still encouraging them to see how best they can push back. So these are also challenges that impede on free movement. So we have had the presentation is good. As members of parliament, you have challenged us to talk to our line ministers and to go back to our parliament and see how best we can rectify these protocols. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Yavi. I think I'm listening to you for the second time on this very powerful statement. I was in Seychelles, and it was my desire that you talk to the whole committee, and I'm so happy that you are here to talk to us because what our heads of state did by signing the AFCFTA protocol was just a sign that we are moving forward. And as you have said, elaborated very well, what does it mean and who should take responsibility to actualize that? And I think a committee like this must really take the work, the thing forward. And we need to ask ourselves, who else do we need to bring into the ring so that we can move this forward? Because colleagues will never finish issues of xenophobia. The problems we are having now in Kenya, by the way, we have people now who have occupied parliament and they're telling the president, we are coming for you. These are youth who are unemployed. and they are fighting against our budget because they say the budget is taxing our parents' father. And yet our parents took us to school, we are finished, we have not been employed. So why are you taxing them? If you cannot create jobs, you cannot create industries. We have to still deal with this issue of unemployment more than anything in the continent. Because so long as somebody from outside a country is employed in a job that others feel like it is their job, this xenophobia is not going to be limited to South Africa. It will spread to the other countries. Kenya, like Sierra Leone, has opened up the visa, and you can actually go to Kenya. You can even go and ask for a work permit. We are not as liberal as Rwanda. Rwanda has even gone further. You can get your work permit in 24 hours. Is it 48 hours as an African? We have not reached that level. But the minute Kenya opened for easy movement of persons and goods, something happened. Kenyans are not very good in making West African clothes. But now we have Nigerians and Ghanaians in Kenya running shops. And everybody is trooping there. Women are trooping there to have their West African outfits done. And we feel this was really something that we lacked for a very long time. Kenya doesn't have a national dress. So we now look like we are wearing African dresses. So we must, it is real that the movement of persons is the only key that might unlock the FCFTA. So I would like also to mention that each country must address the issue of unemployment. And we must look at how we can share that unemployment between ourselves as partner states. So we need to ask ourselves, who else, apart from members of parliament, who else must we have? The same technocrats who need more capacity also may have to come in. So what conversation goes on between us, even and our own technocrats? When I joined this committee, Mr. Chairman, I went and I wanted to meet my Minister of Trade to understand, because I have been in the Agriculture and Education committees all my life in Parliament. But when I came here, I thought the most powerful one is trade. To get my Minister of Trade first, it took me 6 months as a member of Parliament to get that information, because what we are saying, in fact, it was faster to have our president here to come and discuss. Remember when our president came here? It was then that we were able to talk to the minister. And we said, Minister, this is an agenda that we must run with. So I think as members of parliament, I don't know how easy it is in your countries to access the executive and to be able to drive an agenda like this, but we must look for ways of doing it. I know as a committee, we had said we even wanted to go to the borders within South Africa, so that we can be visible as a group. Because if we are not visible ourselves as a committee in our partner countries, it will be very difficult for us to talk. The last one is the Pan-African University. The Pan-African University is another great opportunity for us. Currently, we host in Jomo Kenyatta University one program, I think the agricultural program only. I'm sure the other countries are hosting other departments or faculties of this university. We need to create opportunities for our youth to go for further studies in partner countries. So if we can expand the Pan-African University in a manner that even apart from the university, we actually go for the technical courses, so that when Sierra Leone does not have technicians, plumbers, let the youth know, the unemployed know, that we are employing Kenyans temporarily because we are going to study in Kenya and get the same certificate. So we have to be very intentional, the way I see from her presentation. We have to be extremely intentional in the way we plan. We must plan how we are going to resolve the issues that block us from free movement. So once we have identified, and she has identified quite a good number, we need to now go back and tell ourselves, what can we do? There are so many things we can get from one another. I agree that in mining, the minerals are ours, and yet they are going out to be refined. Then we buy them very, very expensively. I really don't want to go beyond Morocco for fertilizer. Now that they have fertilizer, can we get it from Morocco? Can we enrich them with what they have so that we can move? So there are some things that we need to do for our own selves so that we can move. So xenophobia issues, let's identify, let's deal with them. Employment issues, we must deal with them. Pan-African Parliament, Pan-African University must create opportunities for the mobility of our youth. Let them move, because that movement alone will make them know they are not alone, and they can benefit from other countries. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Form. Now, what's the country again? Cape Verde. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I apologize for having arrived a little bit late, but this was due to transport delay. Would you? I'm Mario Teixeira. I'm an MP from Cape Verde, and I'm also a member of the Pan-African Parliament. I was saying that the presentation was brilliant and very useful, and you raised some points that are extremely important in terms of the advocacy that we must carry out in our countries concerning this free trade in our continent to make it happen. The free movement of people is no doubt the most important obstacle, because without the free movement of people, free trade will not happen. With what my colleagues have said already before me, I don't want to repeat what they've said, but I would like to refer that in Cape Verde, we are an island state. We are a small state with 500,000 inhabitants. Concerning the free movement of people, we've already taken very significant steps. We are part of the ECOWAS, which consists of 15 African countries, and within this community and in West Africa, we have the free movement of people. And we haven't experienced problems. It is an example of success where the free movement of people works well. We also have free movement of people with the Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa, Angola and Mozambique, for example, who are not part of the ECOWAS. And we also have agreements eliminating the need for visa. And I think the last one was with Morocco. Morocco has been a country that has been an engine for trade in Africa. And I think that the free movement of people should be accelerated in all African countries. And at the same time, we should also do our best for our political decision makers, whatever their position is, that we should, at the level of the continent, we must make sure that we get the measures that are necessary to implement the free trade that we wanted. And if I would like to ask the presenter to explain something to me, I have an opinion concerning xenophobia. It's a very complex issue. I think that through education, we might be able to soften these problems of xenophobia. I think that the least education people have, the greater their xenophobic feelings are. Of course, there's the aspect of lack of security, the fear of a small country in relation to a bigger country. There's always a fear that the small country will eat you up if you are a smaller country. But I think if we have better education in terms of this aspect, I think we might be able to soften this problem. We cannot eradicate it. It's not that easy, but I think it can be softened. Another aspect that might contribute in terms of the free movement of people, and I think there should be a joint effort at the level of the continent. Those who have the best technology, they should help those countries that don't have as much access to technology. And this has to do with the security of the documents. The security in terms of the documents and at the level of the borders. Not all countries have efficient systems to control entry and exit of people. So it's not creating obstacles, but having a control. All countries would like to have efficient systems and documents that have strong security features. And I think that if that is the case, the countries will feel much more at peace. They feel a certain security because they know who's coming in, who's exiting the country, what people are doing. So if there is this level of security and this registration of these people, I think the countries will feel more comfortable in going forward with the free movement of people. And we would like this effort to be a joint effort so that we can suppress or overcome this problem and create the free movement of people and the free trade in Africa. This will bring us huge profit. It will be very good for us in every way. Another aspect that our presenter mentioned is the aspect of transport in Africa. For instance, in Cape Verde, we're an island country. Transport is absolutely essential to be able to trade with Africa. We have an agreement with the United States, the AGOA agreement, like Seychelles, but it has not brought us great benefits. But according to the studies we've done, the intra-African trade would bring us many more benefits than the other agreements we have. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Honorable. We listened to the Honorable Anna from Morocco, and we present our roundup for today.
Alors, bonjour tout le monde. Merci déjà pour
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. And I saw you last time I was here in Joburg, and I spoke. Let me speak about the case of Morocco and the efforts that we're making. Over the last 10 years, we have taken steps to better manage immigration in order to protect the rights of immigrants, fundamental right, through a national immigration and asylum strategy. So this strategy gives us the opportunity to actually deal with four main issues and better facilitate the integration of those who have come to Morocco and create a framework, an institutional framework that allows us to manage the flow of immigrants within the scope of the law. And 11 programs are there, and we have education, accommodation, human assistance, employment, and the management of migration flows, and cooperation and partnership with other countries under the rules of procedure that would govern them, so that we are able to have that immigration that is in line with a law 0103. So this strategy is guided in its vision by objectives and main thrusts and the global approach, together with respect of human rights, and to innovate, share, and come up with much more poignant arrangements that allow us to be better performing, so that we have a number of recommendations in place, so that we have a network of parliamentarians, so that we are able to defend the free movement of people and goods across the continent. And that is important in order to sensitize and mobilize, and to organize together with partners a parallel investment on ICP, on and cooperation together with trade during the Africa Cup of Nations that was held in Morocco. So also be able to speak to other fellow African countries on ICPs, which was able to give us a digital program that allows us to better manage everything.
Madam Presenter, you have listened to your MPs.
Thank you, Chair. I won't keep you long. Just to say to you, Chair, and Mauritius, aside from others, is that as much as you have technically operationalized, if I can put it that way, free movement, it is still imperative that you ratify. And the reason for that is because if everyone thought like that, we would not have ratification. And the ratification is what's actually going to drive the free trade. So even if it's not about the actual free movement, we need to look at it from the perspective of what are the benefits of ratification. The benefits of ratification is that there's a regulatory framework in place. So in other words, when you have criminal elements, for example, that are coming in from other countries, that regulatory framework allows you to be able to push back on it. The fact that you haven't signed / haven't ratified means that you just get labeled xenophobic when you try to get rid of those people. But when you are under a contract, in inverted commas, with being under the actual FMP, protected by it, that is also a protection mechanism for your country or your member state in terms of when the security issues, the concerns that you have, that is how it is actually used to protect, is that ratification allows us to do that. And then on the flip side of that is that there is an obligation to be able to care for that migrant, that either documented or undocumented migrant person, because their human rights have to then be taken into consideration. So if you think about COVID, and some strange numbers were being thrown around in South Africa at the time. I'm an advisor in government, and we were told that it's something like 20 million people that are undocumented in South Africa. Now imagine having to plan for people that, your countries are smaller, but it doesn't mean that the impact is going to be less. So imagine not being able to plan for disasters and crises because you actually have no idea of who, what, where, and how. And that is why the ratification of the FMP is actually critical, and not just being able to operationalize it. And many countries are guilty, in inverted commas, of that because you feel like we can control who we want to be friends with. But unfortunately, therein lies the problem. So that was the biggest feedback in terms of, just your comments. And then going back to the skills aspect, one of the things that we do from an African Prosperity Fund is to bring in funding for infrastructure development to close gaps in terms of water and waste management, those kind of critical needs. And obviously, the funders that fund through us, they've got issues around being able to bring their own people. One of the things that I am emphatic about, I don't even bother to go to my board. I am emphatic about it, is that, okay, that's fine. You're more than welcome to bring your specialists. However, the deal on the table is from day one, there's a transfer of skill. Whether you want it or not. If you get to fund us, I treat it as a privilege. You allow us to transfer skill. And then finally, acceleration of free movement of people through your RECs becomes critical. So like ECOWAS, ECOWAS is the most successful in terms of free movement, but also cross-border trade. And the reason for that is because you have that ability to move across borders just with an ID, sometimes not even without. So the way to be able to sell it, to go back to, I'm not sure which country it was that said, I'm not sure which honorable it was, it said, how do we convince? How you convince is that you start with acceleration or optimizing FMP in terms of your own REC. So you don't necessarily have to sign and ratify immediately. Start with your own REC. And then lastly, I heard AGOA twice today. And I'm sure all of you would have brought it up if you spoke. It has been proven that intra-Africa trade will accelerate, leapfrog actually, economic development and growth and get you to double digits more than any other trade agreement, including AGOA. There is a reason why the likes of Kenya, the likes of South Africa is looking at AGOA and going, do we actually need it? There's a reason. So, and what you do need to understand, and why Mauritius may probably, I have no idea, hasn't ratified AFCFTA is because AFCFTA supersedes all other trade agreements. All other bilaterals go out the window. And in Mauritius' case, they've got so many trade agreements and so many bilaterals with India that will then start to affect that relationship, and therefore. So that's a probability, not necessarily an actual possibility. So just in terms of that, and just in terms of some of the responses around, your comments, thank you very, very much. I would like to put it back to you to say, please go back to your national parliamentarians and to your national parliament and look for your partners within there to be able to start opening up the continent, especially from a skills gap, closing the skills gap, and using circular migration to be able to do just that. But thank you very, very much. Thank you, Marina. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Deputy Chair. I hope that I've managed to close a small gap in terms of possible solutions and certain conversations that can be held back at national level. But thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. I think it was a very informative session. I want to thank the MPs for having participated. You have realized that half of the time I was out of a meeting. It's that global home pressure. While I'm here, the phones are just ringing. But be that as it may, I appreciate the level of conversation. I appreciate our presenter. May we have your contact so that now and then we can always have this conversation via Zoom as we're engaging our parliament, so that you can also advise members of parliament on what to do to really accelerate this free movement of people and goods on the African continent. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. And the meeting is adjourned until tomorrow, 9 o'clock sharp.
No, 9 o'clock. No, really. Yeah.
Some members are just intense.
I thought she was going to leave us.